Welcome to another episode of Corson's Corner, a protective strategy podcast to help you succeed in staying safe. I am very honored today to be here with NICOLE SNELL. NICOLE SNELL is an award-winning international speaker and self-defense expert specializing in sexual assault awareness, violence prevention education, personal safety, and self-empowerment. She is the CEO of Girls Fight Back, the world-renowned personal safety and self-defense seminar for women and girls of all ages. She's also the creator of Outdoor Defense, an online series that offers safety strategies for outdoor adventures. NICOLE is an NACP credentialed advocate and sits on the board for Impact Personal Safety, where she is also a lead instructor. You can see NICOLE delivering keynotes, workshops, and seminars to groups at colleges, elementary schools, high schools, corporations, the U.S. military, private events, and more. But right here today, she is here with us. NICOLE, welcome to Corson's Corner.
Hi, Spencer. Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. When I was first looking into, we're going to be talking about the red zone. We're going to be talking about sexual assault on college campuses. And when I reached out to some very empowered women in my network, I reached out to Ashley King at ADEX Group. I reached out to Amanda at Domestic Shelters, a few others. All of them said, you need to talk to NICOLE. I went up, they sent me a couple of your links. I went to your website. I think I DM'd you on Instagram. You were so kind to reply to my invitation. It's my honor to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
I appreciate that so much. I'm so glad that we are now connected, because the more of us that are in this fight against violence are connected and working together, the better off our chances are at putting an end to violence.
I completely agree. So let's go back for a second and just can you talk to us about how you became such an advocate for this? Is it an epidemic? Is it a pandemic? It is a national crisis. I mean, I'm looking at some of the stats and I'm seeing, what is it? Women 18 to 24 on a college campus are 3 times more likely to be a victim or a survivor or just impacted by sexual assault on college campus. I even feel bad not knowing the correct terminology for that. What is going on? How are you helping? How did you get into this to help those in need?
Well, it's definitely an epidemic, and I would say it's even an international epidemic, because sexual assaults aren't just a problem on our college campuses. They're a problem in our communities at large. It's a problem in the military. It's a problem in different schooling. It's a problem in corporations. It really just is a problem that affects everyone. It's not just a women's issue. It's everyone's issue to put an end to this. And you're right. The statistics for college-age women that experience sexual assault is 1 in 3. In the general population, it's 1 in 4. But the scary thing is that is just what is reported. And we know that the majority of sexual assaults go unreported for a number of reasons. So that's just what we know. And I got into this work. I've always been an advocate for women, for women's rights. I've always been very stubborn and strong-minded myself, and wanting to go where I want to go and do what I want to do since I was very young. I travel solo, and one of the things I always was told by people every time I told them I was going somewhere was they would say, oh, it's not safe for women. Oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't go here by yourself. And I was tired of people trying to put limits on me and put limits on women, and tell us what we can and can't do to go out and live our life. And I disregarded what they said and would go out and do what I needed to do, being aware of my surroundings as I did it. And this is before I had self-defense training. But I was always, very athletic. And like I said, I was very stubborn and very opinionated and strong-willed about what I wanted to do. So I always felt capable of taking care of myself. And full disclosure, I am a survivor of sexual assault and violence at a young age. And in fact, the statistics are 80 to 84% of women experience sexual assault before they're 25. And for men, it's even higher. It's 88% of men experience sexual assault for the first time before they are 25. So I am within that statistic. And when I got introduced to this work about 8 years ago, I really jumped at the chance to be able to make a difference, because I wake up every morning as a woman, as a Black woman, and that carries its own amount of, intersectional challenges that I've dealt with my whole life. And I wanted to do something to help. I worked in TV production for 12 years. I was a line producer. I traveled the world producing TV shows and internet content and things.
Right.
And I wanted to do something more. I wanted to do something where at the end of the day, I felt rewarded, where at the end of the day, I felt like I was making a difference to help people. And I originally got started by working with an organization that was contracted with the US Navy to do SAPR training. SAPR, you probably know, but in case your listeners don't know, sexual assault prevention and response training at military installations around the world. I've been to Gitmo 3 times presenting a presentation on bystander intervention and sexual assault prevention. I've been, to pretty much every military base on Okinawa and Japan, South Korea. I've been around the world doing these presentations to primarily male audiences, since the armed forces are, predominantly male, and, trying to educate them on bystander intervention strategies and giving them information about domestic violence, sexual harassment, sexual assault. And through that, I found the company Girls Fight Back. And at the time, they didn't have an opening for me, but I looked at their company. I said, oh my gosh, wait, going and speaking to women at colleges about self-defense and personal safety, that's something you can do? How do I get involved? I emailed the owner, and 3 months after I emailed, they had a job opening. And so I got trained. Part of my training was to graduate from a 20-hour full course, full contact self-defense course with impact personal safety, which I did. And I decided I wanted to teach that as well. And so I started learning and being trained to be a full contact instructor for them as well, which now I'm a lead instructor with Girls Fight Back as a speaker till last year, when they were selling the company. The owner was selling the company, and I bought the company so that I could continue the work, because I felt so connected to what we were doing and to helping women. And I have gender inclusive programs as well, because I believe everybody can benefit from learning this.
Yes.
And I believe in the mission so much. And I knew that if I took it over, that I could continue this and I could continue to help people. And every email, every DM, every person that comes up to me after a presentation and tells me that this helped them, or that they're currently going through a situation and that now they feel more powerful, or that now someone feels like they can go and do that through hike and they're feeling even more powerful than they were before. That is why I do that. If I can help one person, it's worth it.
Your passion resonates in your voice and in your language. And I've seen your work. I've seen your speeches. I've seen your YouTube. I've seen you in action. And
I appreciate that.
I would absolutely send my clients to you. In fact, I
Thank you.
will.
Thank you.
I want to talk about, college game day is coming up here at University of Texas, and I was actually, Googling red zone so that I could get it for football this year. And of course, with my algorithm being what it is, I don't get football, I get sexual assault returns. I know what the red zone is. You know what the red zone is. I'm not sure our audience really may know what the red zone is. Would you mind just giving a brief explainer as to what the red zone means when we're talking about sexual assault on college campuses? Yeah,
the red zone pretty much is alluding to the fact that the first semester, so August, September, October, November of the college school year, is when the majority of sexual assaults occur. And they often occur alcohol facilitated at parties. And contrary to what is popularized in the media, it's not stranger assaults. We're talking about assaults between people that know each other, yes, where the perpetrator knows the survivor and alcohol has facilitated the assault. There is no consent, and now a crime has occurred. And 1 in 3 college women will experience sexual assault, often within that time frame.
So I know from my own research in looking at criminal activity and predatory behavior that regardless of circumstance or scenario, the #1 factor of target selection is likelihood of success. So why do you think it is that it's that first few months of the semester versus the end of the year? Is it because new freshmen, new participants to the college experience aren't as they're more familiar with their surroundings, they're more familiar with the dynamics of college culture? Or is it that it's kind of, you're exploiting the naivete of first-time college students? What do you think is the reason, the catalyst behind those red zone statistics?
I think that, like you, predators are looking for a target where they can complete, where they'll have success in completing the crime that they have in mind.
Right.
So they're looking for targets who are vulnerable, who are accessible, who are distracted, or who lack credibility. And now you're talking about people who've just come from all over the country, sometimes all over the world. They may be in a new state, a new city. Maybe this is their first time being on their own. Their situational awareness may not be was back home. Maybe they don't quite have an understanding of, how to be aware of their situation. And they have a vulnerability that maybe they didn't have when they were home. They don't know as many people. Maybe they're looking for their friend group. They're trying to fit in. They aren't really sure of, where to go for help, where their connections are. And we're talking about people who are 18 to 24. The brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25. So we're still in this stage.
And that's for women. I think for men, it's like 35.
I would agree with that. But so you have a group of people that are still, in their developmental stage, trying to figure out who they are. And now they're in an area where their vulnerability has already increased most often from where they're coming from. I mean, even for me, I went to school in California. I grew up in California, and I remember my first year. I remember not really knowing what was going on. And, I remember one time I was at a frat party with some folks that were, the fraternity members I worked with, like we worked together. And so I thought, I feel totally safe with them. Like, this is fine. And one night I was at a frat party, and I was, this was when I was already 21. So I'm just putting it out there. I was of legal age. And I was drinking, and I was too drunk to drive home. And I called my sister, because she lived in West LA. I was in Long Beach. And I told her, hey, Michelle, I'm just going to stay here tonight because I can't drive back. And this is before Uber and Lyft. And I was like, I'm just going to stay here. But, I think of these guys as my brothers. I work with them. It's fine. And she was like, the hell you are. She drove up, picked me up, and drove me back to my dorm, because she's 7 years older. So she was more aware of the dangers. Whereas I kind of and nothing happened to me that night. Thankfully, nothing happened to me when I was in college. But things do happen. My experience isn't the experience of every other person, but maybe someone doesn't have that person they can call, someone that is looking out for them. Maybe someone isn't there. You go out with your friends, and perhaps, you get separated, and your friend doesn't see the creepy person that is, trying to push more and more alcohol to continue to inebriate that person, to make them vulnerable. It's predatory. Like, alcohol is the number one date rape drug.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I couldn't agree with that more. And, you and I were talking earlier, and you even said, like, you don't want to be told what you can't do. You want to be told what how do you live your very best life the safest way possible? And as I was doing some research, ahead of this interview, this discussion with you, I'm looking at some of these things, and they're all like don'ts, like don't walk alone, don't be alone at night, like know where the police department, like, I'm like, this is not helpful. This is not employable, digestible, practical information that women on campus can use to help them succeed in staying safe. And one of the things I like for this podcast to do is kind of offer those protective strategies that can help women to succeed in their own safety. So what do you recommend? What are some best practices for, let's say I have a niece who's going to college for.
I have a niece that's going to college for the first time.
Oh, perfect. So what kind of advice, other than boys lie, what advice are you going to give to your niece as she is heading off to college to help her to have the best college experience possible, but also have that experience be as safe and as protected as possible?
Well, there's a few things that I always tell women first, or I told her for sure. I've been harping on her about self-defense and awareness and everything, for years. But the first thing is your intuition, trust it. I know
Yes.
Gavin talks about that so heavily in his book, and I have yet to read the book that you so graciously sent to me. However, I do plan on reading it, and I'm sure intuition is going to be a big one in there as well. It's really the key that unlocks our safety, because we as humans are the only animal where our intuition
To negotiate against, yes.
ourselves to trust that feeling.
Yeah.
Yep. Because we think we know better. We think, oh, I'm being ridiculous. Oh, it's probably nothing. Oh, this person seems really nice, and my friend is friends with them, so I must be just feeling weird for some other reason. And we talk ourselves out of it. And instead, we need to trust that feeling. It's picking up on things we are not necessarily aware of as consciously. So I always say that's one of the first things. Trust that intuition. If someone is walking behind you and you feel weird, turn around and make eye contact. Look at them. Let them know you see them. Just yesterday, Spencer, quick story. I was walking home. I live by myself, so I am going to do things by myself. I am not going to wait around and expect other people to drop their life to fit my schedule. So that whole don't walk by yourself is just, it's not helpful. I have done this my whole life. I'm walking and I see this guy that looks a little sketch, and there's a lot of package thefts going on in our neighborhood right now. And I saw him walk over to a house that's not mine, like a duplex. And he looks over the fence, and he kind of goes in, and he's looking around the building. And so I looked at him as I was walking by, and he looked at me, he looked away, and I kept looking at him. And he looked back and he goes, hi. I go, hi, can I help you with something? And then he stopped. He's like, oh, and he did the tool of manipulation Gavin talks about, the too many details. Oh, I live here and and just giving me all this information I didn't ask for. And he's like, oh, where do you live? I go, yeah, I'm not going to tell you that. And he goes, oh, my name's so-and-so. And I was like, okay, that's nice. And then I kind of went along with him, like, oh yeah, it's terrible. People are stealing packages, and you just better be careful looking for your stuff. And I walked away, and then he walked away, like he left the building, where they were. Right. I don't know if I thwarted a potential package thief, but just my making eye contact and letting them know I see them can be a deterrent, because now you're not vulnerable.
You've removed their anonymity. Right. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. I talk about that in my own book too, like the safety trap of being too polite, where it's like you don't want to, be, being disagreeable is probably one of the most empowering, personality traits every one of us could employ, whether it's in a business setting or a personal relationship setting, or just even a talking to stranger setting. Because, right, had you just been so willing to overshare those very personal details, your name, where you live, who you are, who's to say that, he wouldn't, look to exploit whatever vulnerabilities you may have had in place first or next.
Exactly. And something I believe I saw this in an interview that you did, or something that you wrote about, what you just said about being disagreeable is okay. And I teach something very similar. Now, a lot of us in the violence prevention world teach very similar things. But my kind of motto is your safety is more important than someone else's feelings. Oftentimes we feel like we're so worried about offending someone or not being seen as nice that our niceness gets weaponized against us, especially women and those who identify as women.
100%. Your unwillingness to offend another should never be stronger than your willingness to defend yourself. Right. Yeah, no, you're right. Because being polite is a courtesy, but protecting yourself is a priority. Yeah. But, and absolutely. I think one of the reasons, not just women, but really everyone, is, kind of negotiates against that intuition that you were talking about earlier, is that we kind of want to play defense attorney for someone else before we play advocate for ourselves.
Yes.
And I couldn't agree with you more, that just that baseline, Gladwell has that book Blink, where he talks about all those micro decisions we make, all those pre-incident indicators that kind of give us that sense of something's bad. We don't know what it is, but it's just that gut reaction. And it's because we don't realize that millions of years of evolution have kind of, provided us with this survival instinct. Gavin calls it the gift of fear. I call it survival strategies. But like you said, it's instinct. It's in our DNA. It is ingrained in us over a millennia, which has helped our species to survive. But because we do live in such a safe society, I kind of talk about that in my book, The Safety Trap, is that when we feel safe, our vigilance has a tendency to go down, which means our risk has the propensity to go up.
Yes, thank you for saying that. I remember reading that, or I watched a couple of your podcasts and some of your interviews, but I remember you saying that, like, when you feel safe, then your kind of awareness goes down, and that's actually when you may be more at risk. And I couldn't agree more. I'd like to add on to that.
Please.
Sometimes what's often used as a litmus test for safety, I guess, so to speak, is avoid dangerous neighborhoods. People say, oh, don't go in that unsafe neighborhood. And that gives a bad thing happen in neighborhoods. Your awareness, you should be situationally aware, regardless if the neighborhood's a good neighborhood or a bad neighborhood. Of course, if the neighborhood is like super awful and you can avoid it, of course try. But say I'm driving to the airport and my car breaks down in a bad area. Well, now I'm in a place where I can't help it. So how can I be the safest I can be in the situation that I don't have control over? Nor does my being in that area give anyone permission to cause me harm or me. A lot of people think that you only have to be aware of certain things in certain situations based on societal stereotype, or biases, or myths that the media perpetuates. And they think you only have to pay attention to these things. And if you're not in one of those situations, you don't have to worry about it. And instead, I want to teach people to use their intuition and awareness at all times, because you may experience violence in a good neighborhood, just like you can experience violence in a bad neighborhood.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. There's no such thing as like wrong place, wrong time. It's any place, anytime. And, like I always say, like a healthy sense of skepticism and a moderate dose of vigilance are all most people need to succeed in staying safe. But what we can't do is like live on this fringe of the pendulum, swinging from like complacency where nothing's going to happen to, oh my God, something bad just happened and now I'm like hyper vigilant about it. Like everyday safety is like right here in the middle. And I completely agree that, sometimes the safest place you can be is a bad neighborhood, and someplace the most dangerous place you can be is, what was the threat level of New York City on September 11th at, 8 o'clock in the morning? It was 0. What was it an hour later? Right?
Yeah.
Much worse.
And the fact that most women experience violence from intimate partners and people they know.
Right.
That's your home. That's the home. That's the place where you're supposed to feel the safest. And oftentimes that is the least safe place.
You're right. Like women, the number one threat, to women is men. And the number one threat to men is like heart disease. Like it's not fair. So we talked about intuition. What's another?
Awareness.
Yes.
I think awareness is key. And I teach awareness as not as hypervigilance, but as I call it a conscious acknowledgement of your surroundings, to consciously give yourself permission to be present in the moment and to avoid denying the sequence of events that are happening. Don't deny the pre-contact indicator, so to speak, and let your awareness take in what you're seeing.
There's something there. And I don't know if it's that like we just intrinsically don't want to pick up on those pre-incident indicators, or that if we just don't want to believe that someone who's at our school or someone who's at our life or someone who's like in our ecosystem could be that bad of a person. But if when someone tells you that they're a bad person, believe them. You know what I mean? Because people will always tend to communicate their intent, even if it's done in like a joking fashion. So if you're at a party with a guy and he's like, well, hopefully I can get you drunk and take advantage of you later. Like he's probably going to try to get you drunk and take advantage of you later.
Yeah. And that's an unsolicited promise.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And you said something that made me think of, but I think the only thing I would add to the awareness is, you know what? Yours was too perfect. I'm not even going to try to add on to it and mess it up.
Thank you. I wanted to hop onto something else that you said about, why people maybe don't want to pay attention to the pre-incident indicators. They don't want to think that someone is a bad person. Have you heard of the just world theory?
Yeah, everyone, we have and if I get this wrong, please correct me, but I believe that it is, we have a tendency to project how others would behave as we would behave in a similar circumstance.
That may be another type of theory, but I was thinking of another just world theory. Well,
No,
the one that talks
not
about
the first
more
time I've
of,
been wrong, won't be the last.
no, I bet you're right. Maybe it's just called a different name. But the one that I'm referencing is that people want to think that we live in a just world. So to admit to ourselves that sexual assault happens, that means we don't live in a just world. And to try to justify that in their mind, they try to project all the things that someone else did wrong, and that's why they were a victim of crime. But if I just don't do those things, then I'll be safe from this crime. And that is a theory that is used to kind of explain the victim blaming mentality and why people don't want to admit to the fact that violence does happen. Because if it happens, it means it could happen to them, and they want to deny that fact and justify all the reasons why it couldn't possibly happen to them.
Oh, interesting. So if I'm a good person, good things will happen to me. But if I'm a bad person, bad things will happen, to me. So if I just be good, I can expect good things. And yeah, you're right. I think that, I remember talking to my sister when she was like going on a hike out in like Colorado. And like, listen, there's some beautiful trails out in Colorado. You know what else is in Colorado? Bears, snakes, Wolverines, like lots of dangerous stuff. And I was just like, hey, listen, just be attention to your surroundings. She's like, no, when I go for a hike, I just like to put out like peace and love into the world, and let Mother Nature know that I don't mean them harm. And I'm like, what the bear is thinking? That looks like lunch. Okay, so it's great that we want to have this like dystopian, not dystopian. What is the word I'm looking for? When everything is like beautiful,
positive, optimistic. Utopian.
Utopian was the word I was looking for. Thank you. I don't have my thesaurus readily available on the screen here. But no, it's like in the animal kingdom, it's food.
Yeah.
Like feed
me. And that is what I teach. The whole reason why I have my series Outdoor Defense was because I hike solo, and I travel solo, and I camp solo, and I adventure solo for the most part. And I started talking about that, and I created the series after friends and family for a couple of years told me to put the two together, put self-defense with your outdoor hiking. And I'm like, I don't think it's really going to connect. I didn't think it was going to fit. No one's going to want to know about both of these things. I got to keep them separate. But I finally had a friend that pushed me the final motivation of just start it and just do it. So in 2019, I started my first series, my first episode of Outdoor Defense, talking about what we can do. And it's primarily targeted to women who travel and hike solo, but it really is applicable to everyone. Nothing that I'm saying is really gender specific, but it's more targeted to women because they tend to be the ones that have that fear of encountering a dangerous person in the outdoors. Mm-hmm. And so I started creating, episodes. I have 44 episodes out now across 2 seasons to discuss just that. What are some things we can do to feel safe and to be safe while going out and doing these, outdoor activities solo? How can we feel empowered? And that is one of the main things that I know, kind of going back to your first question of what I would tell my niece for going off to college, is that you're worth fighting for. Understanding that fact, understanding you're worth it, you are capable. The world may try to tell women that we are weak, we are helpless, rely on it to protect us and to keep us safe. But no, we are more than capable of being able to protect ourselves, defend ourselves, speak up for ourselves, and physically defend ourselves if we need to. We just have to believe it. And by learning some simple skills, which is what I aim to teach, I can help them get in touch with that power they already have inside of them.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Most people don't realize that just how strong and smart they are, and that they have more in reserve than they ever would, than they would ever believe. David Goggins has that, right around the time that your mind wants to quit, you're only at 40%. You still have another 60% left into the tank. You just have to have the willingness to have it evolve within you. It's kind of like courage doesn't come before the first step; it comes after. You just have to. You have to be. So we have intuition. We have awareness. Any others?
You're worth fighting for.
I'm sorry, you're worth fighting
100%.
for. 100%.
That knowledge that you're worth fighting for is really important. And then boundaries. being comfortable speaking up for
Boundaries
yourself and
are
setting boundaries.
huge.
Huge. And like, this is what I always find interesting is all the things that I just told you are non-physical things. And a lot of times people think self-defense is all physical. And yes, physical is a huge component. When you know you can back up yourself with your body, it completely changes your confidence in how you walk through the world. However, I don't go around in my daily life throwing heel palms at people, Spencer. I just don't. I can't tell you the last time I heel palmed someone. But setting boundaries, using my voice every day. If not every day, several times a week. And that's still self-defense. We are still protecting ourselves and protecting our space and asserting our boundaries. And setting boundaries is one of the first steps to preventing an assault, because an assailant has to get through your boundaries in order to commit that assault. And if we can have strong boundaries, and assailants, I'm going to say this, and I'm curious if you're going to agree with me or not, but I often say this: assailants are cowards. They're not looking for a fight. They're not looking for the strongest person to take down. They're looking for someone they consider vulnerable and or weak.
They want the greatest return for the least amount of effort. Like lions stalking gazelles in the wild don't go after the strongest of the herd. They go after the weakest. And they assume that same target selection when it comes to us. What they are looking for someone who, we were talking about intuition, and we talked a little bit before about like being disagreeable, but like one of the things that predators, especially predators of sexual assault, how they use alcohol to kind of lower the inhibitions and placate and almost, literally physiologically immobilize and make their intended target more susceptible of their predatory behaviors, is because it offers a higher degree of success for them if they're able to accomplish that. And, to that awareness factor, whether it's we notice it happening to us or we noticing it happening to another, like that is the moment to act. Like self-defense tools are great, self-defense strategies are great, but a self-defense mindset is really the best, prevention possible.
Absolutely. And I think you and I are saying the exact same thing. So basically what I'm teaching is the self-defense mindset. And then I'm showing them how to use these skills as tools for their toolbox, so to speak, to help them, and then teaching them the physical as well as
I love that you said tools
skills
in your toolbox, because I really think that's so much of what it is. Because you and I were kind of like talking about this offline, and I kind of mentioned this in my book, but it's so often when people find themselves in either dangerous or compromised or harmful situations, it's not because they made a bad decision. It's because they didn't have all of the necessary information to make the most informed decision or the correct decision. Because, when we have these false expectations, when we have this false equivalence, when we, kind of want to believe things are different than they actually are, we are emotional creatures, and we make, safety is ultimately an emotion. And when when we feel safe, sometimes feeling safe is the most dangerous thing we do, because we, make decisions that, actually lower our security because it makes us feel better about ourselves. Going back to even just like not wanting to offend someone makes us feel better, but it actually puts us more at risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And understanding too, like part of what I teach is, letting people know, survivors know, like it's not their fault if an assault happens to them. It is always the fault of the criminal for an assault that happens. And
literally rape can't occur without a rapist.
Exactly. I can sit here in my apartment and drink. I don't drink. Haven't drunk alcohol in years, since right after college. So I don't drink alcohol at all anymore. Everyone who knows me knows when we go out, get NICOLE ice water, get NICOLE water. But if I was to drink in my apartment in the absence of someone to commit a sexual assault, in the absence of a rapist, I could get drunk. Sure, I could get sick. I might, get real nauseous. I might pass out. I might have a really bad headache the next morning. Those are all effects of the alcohol, but rape is not a consequence of alcohol. Rape is not caused by the alcohol itself. It is caused by someone, a perpetrator who is using that as a way to take advantage of someone else or as a way to excuse their own behavior. We often see that where perpetrators will use the excuse that they were drunk and that's why they committed the assault. And because our system is so skewed and there's such a double standard by, women who drink are viewed one way, men who drink are viewed another way. So men who drink and they try to use that as an excuse, it's like, oh, okay, well, he drank. But a woman drinks and it's, oh, well, shame on you. You should have known better if and then we use that to victim blame. And that's
right.
so
well,
wrong.
That was the Stanford rape case problem.
Yes.
Right. That he basically, he used alcohol as a defense because, listen, I mean, alcohol clearly, you look at the statistics and in almost like 99% of cases, like you're hard pressed to find a case of sexual assault on campus where alcohol was not a factor. So how do women feel comfortable and empowered to go out in social settings and talking with strangers and enjoying a few drinks and engaging in that courtship, that dynamic, that socialization that is so much a fun part of the college experience, but do so in a safe way? I know from my own family is that my grandfather, when we were in high school, wanted us to drink with the family, not get drunk, but know what it felt like to be buzzed, know what it felt like to have, if you have one more drink after that, where it puts you, because he basically said, I want you to get drunk. If you're going to get drunk, I want you to know what it feels like to get drunk in front of family where you're safe, because I don't want your first time getting drunk to be at a bar, where you're going to make a fool of yourself. My grandfather always had this never show your ass for a dime quote. But basically he was saying you don't want your first time getting drunk to be a literal trial by fire. So is it, I don't even want to, but what do you think, knowing that alcohol is clearly a factor in college sexual assaults, what are some things that women can do to enjoy having a drink, even if it's underage, because we know it's going to happen, but to do so in a safe and protective fashion?
I want to answer that question, but before I do, I just want to lay out that there's so many interdisciplinary ways in which to attack that question, that yes, giving women skills and tools to be able to do that safely is one piece of it, but also actually what's the word I'm looking for? Incarcerating rapists. Less than 1% of rapists will serve any time in jail. So that is a huge problem. We're not punishing the criminals that are actually committing these crimes. And the Stanford case is a great example where this person, there were witnesses, they know it happened, and yet
he was literally stopped by two other people that came out and saw it take place.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even because of that, and there's some intersectional, layers on top of that, white privilege, white male privilege, that is all added, his social status, his socioeconomic status. And that shouldn't matter because he committed a crime. This woman, this is something that is going to be a part of her life for the rest of her life now. It's not going to define her because she's more than what happened to her, but it is going to be a part of her life now. And that's not something that the judge would even consider. So I think making sure that we are actually punishing the criminals that are committing these crimes is a huge part to deterring future crime. If people, that's really why we punish crime, is because we want to not only punish / rehabilitate the criminals, but also be a deterrent for future criminals who say, oh, I don't want that consequence, so I'm not going to do this.
I completely agree that there has to be a deterrence factor. The issue is that the more drunk you become, the more myopic you become, which means you're not thinking about the long-term repercussions of your actions. You're only looking at and seeking the immediate gratification of whatever it is you're focused on. And for men in college, that's sex.
And that leads to...
So the guy in college who's getting drunk and is intending to sexually assault, someone, isn't thinking about, well, if I get caught, I'm going to go to jail.
Yes,
and
that's a good point.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think that we need to, or I don't understand why alcohol education is not more prevalent, because it used to be that we thought that, oh, if someone was getting drunk, that, you saw their true self, you saw their true personality, you saw, the inhibitions get stripped away and you were, a sober man's words or a drunk man's words or a sober man's thought type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And more research is showing that that's not true, that actually what's happening is you're just getting dumber and you're becoming more myopic and your, your hippocampus starts going into decline. So you don't have any memory. I mean, when they talk about that Stanford rape case, the predator didn't remember doing it. And the victim, like the last thing she remembered, like was before she even met him. And the next thing she remembered was her being in the hospital. And I think people have this notion that, blackout means passed out. And that's not true. Like you can be a perfectly functioning, communicating individual and be blacked out. It just means you're not going to remember any of it moving forward. Sorry, I got off on a little bit of a tangent there asking your question, but like what I hate knowing that men are the problem, because men are absolutely the problem. And I wouldn't want your niece or my sisters or my family or friends or colleagues or whatever, just even like at a Christmas party, like not feeling that they can go out to a bar and be safe and engage in, the libations of the moment. But I think certain lessons get learned later as you're more socialized. Like there's a reason that it's the first part of the school year, not the last part of the school year where these assaults happen. So, I mean, what is something that you would teach your niece about engaging in alcoholic beverages with strangers?
Yeah. I'm still going to answer your question. I just want to add one more piece to the interdisciplinary
listen,
part.
It's totality of circumstance for everything. Yeah. And I don't want to say like, oh, if you just do this, like you're going to be safe, because that's absolutely not true.
Absolutely not. Yeah. And I know 100% that that's not what you're saying. I just feel like it's so important for me to kind of lay the framework before I offer.
Listen, this is why I invited you on, because you are literally the subject matter expertise. And I hope that the audience learns from you as much as I'm learning.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we making sure that we actually put rapists in jail. We actually prosecute, right? So that's one piece of it. It's not the only piece, it's one piece. The other piece is teaching respect and teaching about consent at a young age, because that is really what it comes down to. And there still is, yes, we live in the United States. I mean, maybe some of your listeners are from different parts of the world. We live in the United States, and there is still a huge double standard. Women still are very much oppressed in many ways. The way society views them, there's double standards regarding what we can wear. There's slut shaming. We're constantly objectified and viewed for our bodies. And there still is, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because I am not a man, so you would be better able to comment on this. But in society at large, I'm speaking very binary and male, female. I understand that there's more than two genders, and gender expression and how people identify is fluid. But in the binary system, it's that men are taught at a young age societally that achieving sex is the height of masculinity and manliness, and it doesn't matter how you get there. I mean, of course, the good men know that you don't rape other people, you don't rape women, but we have this society that puts men who sleep with a lot of women are considered studs, and they're considered, they're really attractive, and they're really, they're great with women, and they're players, and it's seen as a positive. But women have sex with a lot of men, and suddenly now we're slut shaming them. We're using every name in the book to demean their worth, because the more people she has sex with, now she loses her value in society, is what our society says, which is not true. But that's kind of the dichotomy that we are living in. So you take that, and now you add alcohol. So now you have the toxic masculinity, where men are seen as sex is a conquest. And now they know that if they get someone super drunk, that they're going to be less likely to say no. And we know that someone doesn't have to actually say no for it to be no. Lack of a no is not a yes. But you have that added in, where they're purposely pushing alcohol on women, and with the intent to hopefully lower their inhibition so that they'll be more likely to say yes, and there's less likely chance that they will resist. It is predatory for those reasons.
And that, I'm so glad to hear you bring that up. I actually do some work. Are you familiar with the Men of Code project?
I am not.
So Men of Code, there's an organization in DC called Becky's Fund, which is an advocacy for survivors of domestic violence. And one of the programs that they run is a program called Men of Code. And it's men off the field, men off the field. And what we do is we work with 8th grade to 12th grade student athletes to teach them about consent and getting the degradation of women conversation out of the locker room, that when you hear about someone, being inappropriate or trying to exploit the weaknesses of another woman, or if you know that domestic violence or intimate partner violence or some kind of like sex game ritual is going on, that you're the one who steps up to stop that. Because you are completely right. The more we can work to curtail and re-socialize the perception and I have a hard time with toxic masculinity, because I don't feel that masculinity is toxic. I feel like the lack of masculinity is toxic. Like, I feel like true men provide and protect for everyone. We look out for those who we love and we care about. But I feel that, the lack of masculinity is exploitive and overly emotional and has a sense of entitlement. And, you look on like social media with these guys, and especially like, I can't tell you how many dating app audits I do where there's like a stalking thing where a guy reaches out and he's like, hey, thanks for connecting. Like, it'd be great to like hang out sometime. And then like the girl, either didn't mean to connect or didn't want to connect, or decides that she doesn't like you said, trusts her intuition and just doesn't want to have to deal with this guy. And then what happens next is like, what, are you too good for me? Oh, well, you know what? You're not that hot. You know what? You're ugly. Well, F you. And it just like, because when there is this, the outrage of the male ego, when expectation is unrequited, that's toxic. That's toxic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
I think we're saying the
we're 100% saying the same thing. My whole point of saying this was that I can't agree with you more that it's a socialization problem, and that the more that real men can do to encourage and mentor the younger future leaders of our masculine enterprise, the healthier that interplay between men and women will ultimately be.
Absolutely. And there are so many places where women are not: the locker rooms, the fraternities, right, the sports teams, the places where men are just among other men. We're not there. We're not in that conversation. We can imagine what's being said about us, but we're not there. And if there are people there that are talking in a degrading fashion or being disrespectful, objectifying and just being awful in their description and how they're talking about women, we're not there to be able to defend ourselves. We're going to rely on the
right,
good men that are in that room to speak up for us. And I understand, well, I can't say I understand because I'm not a man, but I can imagine how difficult that would be when you're in a social group, and if you're the only one who speaks up, and now all of a sudden you are bearing the brunt of the group saying, you're going against what the dominant folks or what the majority of the folks are saying, and you might be ostracized because of that. And social ostracization.
Ostracization.
Yeah, thank you. Social ostracization is a powerful tool for which to keep people in line, so to speak. And I understand it may not be easy to do, but it has to be done. I mean, the majority of men are good men. I know that. Majority of crimes are committed by men, but it's a small number of men who are committing the majority of the crimes. There was a study done, I can look up the references for you, but there was a study done on college campuses, and the majority of perpetrators had done it more than once. And I think there was another study that studied rapists in jail at large, and it was like each one committed 8 to 11 sexual assaults.
And you know what? They probably learned it. They probably learned it in high school and then perfected it in college.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that statistic at all.
Yeah, and I can find the actual reference.
Yeah, if you can find that, that'd be great.
I'll
include it in the show notes so that everyone else can learn from that study as well.
Yeah, because I want to always make it clear to folks, like I'm not anti-man. I know that it's not all men, but it's enough men that every woman has experienced something. And been
Every
sexually
single, I don't, someone just gave us, some celebrity just gave a, made a comment about like every woman I know has like been sexually harassed or has either been sexually harassed or sexually assaulted by a man. And
yeah.
you know, whoever was like, oh, well, I can't believe, I was like, no, that's 100% true. 100% true. Every woman I know has a story to tell.
Yes.
And it's gut wrenching. You know what I mean? Like
It absolutely is.
like outside of like combat, have really never felt physically in fear of my life or of my safety or well-being. And I can't imagine what it would be like to, listen, I thank God every day I was born a man. I'm not going to lie. But that doesn't excuse, or that doesn't, you know, but with that, allocation, I guess, of a Y chromosome means that it's also my job to look out for the fare of our species.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up I'm the successful son of a single mother. I have 3 younger sisters. Like my entire life, I have been socialized by and been protective of women. And the more I can do to help aid in that effort by talking to people like you and everyone else in the realms of advocacy, it is my sacred duty to do so.
I appreciate it. We need more allies like you.
Listen.
No, it's okay. I'm so appreciative of you and the work that you do and other men like you that are doing this advocacy work and educating men and doing what you can to help women. And I mean, that's what we need. Conversations are so important. And I would love to answer the question now that I've kind of laid a framework of why I'm answering this question in this way, is with everything in mind that I just said, what women can do to go out and continue to live their life is to trust your intuition, use your awareness, and set your boundaries for yourself before you go out. Determine, okay, am I going to drink tonight? Great. How much do I plan on drinking? And how am I going to get home? Set your plan and your boundaries in place before you go out. Go with your friends. We always say that if you're going to go out somewhere, you know, maybe you decide to go somewhere by yourself, which I'm not going to tell you not to do that. I'm just going to tell you to do all the things that I said, you know, awareness, intuition. If something feels weird, get out of there. And if you go out with your friends, go home with your friends, look out for each other. And sexual assault most often happens behind closed doors where there aren't a lot of bystanders. So for bystanders to really be effective, you have to be aware of the pre-contact indicators beforehand so that you can potentially stop it before it gets to that point. And that's why it's important that we're looking around and we're being aware and we're, you know, it's okay to interrupt someone and ask a question and then if you feel like you're under the effect of a predatory drug. I saw a video, it was on YouTube, I think, where the woman, like they did an experiment, like this wasn't real, but they were doing an experiment of how quickly someone could drug your drink. We always tell women, oh, make sure you cover your drink or you don't leave it, you take it with you to the bathroom. But the woman was standing there holding it and the guy reached over her and had something in his hand and just dropped it as he reached across her drink. Just a sleight of hand. And they did it in slow motion on YouTube to show you how quickly it could happen. And so, I mean, what is that telling us? Is that saying that now women can't drink at all, that we always have to have something over our drink? We have to be wary of everyone. We have to drink our drinks like this. Like it's like predators are going to find a way to do something if that is what, I mean, like when you locking your door only keeps out honest people. If someone wants in, they're going to find a way. So how do we how do we empower ourselves so that we can still do this without being, you know, hyper vigilant about everything we do? And it's if you notice someone acting weird or strange, get away from them. If you notice the effects of a predatory drug, if you all of a sudden get extremely sleepy, extremely loopy, extremely, you know, unable to focus and dizzy, go to the bartender, go to a friend and get out of there. Don't let that person, you know, oh, I'm with her and take you home. Like find a safe space and get home or get somewhere safe so that, you know, you get to the hospital if you need to. But it's mostly about setting our boundaries before we go out, being aware of our surroundings, understanding how alcohol does affect us. And we all have different tolerances. So being aware of that and being able to look out for each other when we go out.
Yeah, I think you touched on it on two two things that I really want to just drive in on. One is that boundaries are what we establish for ourselves. I think sometimes a lot of people think that boundaries are what we put on other people. No, boundaries are like, the fence around our house. Like, this is the do not cross line, and, just so everyone knows where it is. But it's our job. The onus is on us when someone is trying to breach that perimeter to go, hey, no, get back. That's not acceptable. And that kind of goes to not just your intuition, but the being disagreeable part. And I think the other thing is that, while the sexual assault itself happens behind closed doors, the planning, not the planning, but the acts of, slipping someone a Mickey, or trying to feed another person alcohol, or, acting in that predatory fashion almost always happens out in the open. And when we see those inappropriate behaviors taking place, the onus is on us to do something about it. Sometimes our willingness to help another is the first step to saving ourselves. And even if we don't, as the individual who notices something happening, feel comfortable intervening, we should say something to someone so that someone knows, so that someone who is comfortable intervening can intervene. Because, the bystander effect, like, well, if I see it, someone else must have seen it, so I'm just assume someone else is going to take care of it. No, the onus is on you. And, which is why, like, when you're first aid class, they always tell you the first thing before you, scene safety is you go call 911, go get help. Because if everyone else, and then what you see immediately happen is the entire community comes together. Everyone's like, oh, okay, yeah, like, tell them we're at this intersection, tell them it's this landmark. If you just tell one person that you see someone acting creepy, at a party or whatever, tell the host, tell a friend, that'll spread around. The more eyes you have on that particularly unfavorable, scenario, you can literally prevent that individual from ultimately being offended, targeted, yeah, or even attacked. No, they've already been targeted. So actually being attacked by that person with nefarious intent. And the more we look out for each other, the safer we'll all be. But there's individual responsibility, there's communal responsibility, there's whatever all of us can do to just help make our society, taking note of those behavioral anomalies, not living in a bubble, being aware, trusting our instincts, because the instincts aren't just that it's happening to you, but that you see it's happening to someone else.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I have nothing else to add to what you just said. I thought it was great. Well, I guess I do want to add one thing is the physical component. If it comes to that, if you have set your boundaries with your voice, and I like how you said about the onus is on us with our boundaries. And I want to just, I want to extrapolate that on that just a little bit more. And I explain boundaries very similar to how you said, it's like a fence around your house. It's the physical boundary, but our boundaries, our personal boundaries are not something you can actually see. I'm not walking around with a hula hoop, so you know exactly how close to get to me. The only way for you to know. Yeah, like, all right, don't get too close. The only way we can communicate our boundaries to others, or the only way someone will know what our boundaries are, is for us to communicate them to the person, to give them the opportunity to respect our boundaries and respect what we need. So us feeling confident and having the tools to be able to effectively articulate what we need, and to feel confident that we have full authority over our own body and our own boundaries to be able to do that. I think that's huge. And that's one of the core things of what I teach, or the undercurrent of what I teach, is just empowering people that you can, like, it's your body, it's your safety, it's your comfort. You can speak up for that, and you can say what you need. And if you're in a situation and someone is not respecting your boundary, that's where the physical techniques come in. If you have tried to assert your boundary and this person is not listening, you have given them plenty of warning. Now it's time to use your physical skills to get to safety. And that's why I teach the physical. It's about hurting someone enough to give you the space to escape to safety. It's not a fair fight. Right. We're not talking about combat. It's just, how can you hurt them quickly, fast, and get away? Yeah.
You need 2 seconds is a long time. If you can mobilize someone for just 2 seconds and you can get away, put as much time and distance between you and that threat as possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Nicole, this has been great. Where, if people want to learn more about you, is there a website? Are you on social media? What are the best places for people to connect with you, to learn more about you and your organization and the the offerings that you provide to help people, women especially, succeed in staying safe?
I have two websites. My first website is NicoleSnell.com, and the second is girlsfightback.com. I am also on social media. My handle on Instagram is girlsfightback and adventures of NIK. It's kind of a mix between my personal one and my professional one. I have a lot of my hiking and solo adventures. My outdoor defense, I post those on there. Outdoor defense, I am done with season 2. I'm going to start filming season 3 at the end of the year, and season 3 will come out in 2022. And then I'm also on Facebook at Girls Fight Back, and I do keynotes, workshops, seminars, primarily for groups, colleges, high school, the U.S. military. I've had the great honor of working with them, not only prior to my time with Girls Fight Back, but also since purchasing Girls Fight Back. I've worked with the U.S. Coast Guard, the U.S. Army, and the U.S. Air Force and U.S. Space Force on several occasions since 2020 with boundaries programs, and also a program that incorporated some self-defense as well for the military community and or their installation community, dependents and such. And I do work for outdoor groups, domestic violence shelters, any group that wants some empowerment. I have an extensive training catalog. I would love to come out and empower your group and speak to them and give them some tools for your toolbox for living an empowered life.
Nicole, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. True pleasure getting to meet you, even if it is virtually. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Spencer. It was a pleasure meeting you, and I hope we can work together more soon.
Cheers.